Okay.
So make sure you introduce yourself.
Okay.
How are you doing?
Got it. Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm Debbie Lucas, dietitian to the cardiovascular wellness program. And hi, everybody who's here. And be sure to get something to eat if you want. We got a few dishes over there today. We're working on fighting inflammation today. And it's something you hear about all the time. You know, inflammation seems to be the source of all evil now. You know, it changes, it seems, over the years, but now it seems to be inflammation is the cause of everything that could be wrong with us. And it might be. I think it actually is. I think it is believable. And there's a webinar I've been listening to. It's a series of a bunch of little webinars for the last week and a half, and they're all about inflammation. So it was perfect timing for this class too. So I tried to add some of the new stuff that I heard from that. But let's see what else we got. I'm glad you're here. How's it? Welcome to summer. Is that my first slide? Yeah, happy summer. Sorry about the slide. Somehow it ended up not working very well, and I didn't want to retype it. So it's summertime. Our foods are all kind of different now. So what are you finding in your farmer's market? What are you loving eating right now? Strawberries. They are strawberries now. We've got that 2-3 weeks that we're going to have cherries right now. I love cherries. Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, okay. So they're pulling out all the root vegetables. All right. Okay, good. Let's see what else is on my list. Artichokes, I'm seeing them. If I don't go to the farmer's market, I judge that they're in season by the price they are really.
Yeah, exactly.
So artichokes are cheap right now. Asparagus is not quite as cheap as I'd like it to be, so I've not bought any. Rhubarb. You know, that is something I never cook, rhubarb, or I've had it in cobblers before, but I've never made rhubarb. What do you do with it?
Well, my favorite thing is pie.
Right.
Then sometimes I just cut it up and put some water on it and stew it. You have to put just some sugar, but you can put other kinds of sweetening.
Right.
But it's sour.
Yeah. Okay. Rhubarb. That's a good one. I should try that. I should vow to try that. Remember Linda, Jenny Goodrow from back in the day? She always made a strawberry rhubarb cobbler for our potlucks. And I loved that so much. I loved it when she made that.
I made that last week.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, that is so fun. That's something I just never do. Of course, the zucchini are coming in full force. I'm sure there'll be more and more of those as we approach summer. Tomatoes are getting better. I'm starting to see the peaches and the nectarines and the apricots. So there's lots of good, fun food. So today we were trying to highlight some of those. So in our salad, we made a rainbow salad. I'll show you a picture towards the end of fruit, all the fruits, just rows and rows of the fruits. So I hope you're enjoying summer and trying the summer things. I put this in because last time we had a talk, somebody had brought up about taking antibiotics and taking probiotics in order to help your gut, because when you're on an antibiotic and it kills the bug that you're trying to kill, but it kind of kills everything else. It kills the good bacteria in your gut. So historically, we've always been told you should take something. What's the one they usually tell us to take? That just an everyday probiotic. I can't think of the name of it for right now. Well, kefir, that's a good one, but this is like an actual, like a pill. Acidophilus, maybe that's what I'm thinking. Acidophilus. They'll say, take that when you're taking your antibiotics to help restore your gut health. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. For some reason, it came up. And so there's recently been a study, and there have been multiple studies. So it's not just this one, because this one isn't a super powerful study. But a lot of the studies are showing that if you take a bacteria like an acidophilus, when you're doing taking antibiotics, it actually slows down how fast your gut reestablishes the good bacteria. We always thought you did it to protect your good bacteria. So the thing is, there was only 8 people. They split the people up into 3 groups. One group, they gave the probiotics. There was only 8 people, so it could have just been a fluke. One group, they actually gave like a fecal transplant, meaning they gave their poop back to them from before they went on the antibiotics, which is a reflection of how your bacteria in your gut, which I know sounds disgusting. And then another group, I think they did nothing. So what they found out was the fecal transplant one, they did the best. They were able to reestablish their good gut bacteria the fastest. That's what they were looking at. But it seemed like those probiotics actually slowed it down. And so it seemed that the best thing to do is what we try to do every day, is eat a high fiber diet, because the more fiber we have, that's the food for our gut bacteria, and have a high diversity in our plant foods. Like today, I don't know, I bet we have 30 plant foods in between our 2 dishes. The more diverse your plant foods are, the more diverse your bacteria in your gut will be, the good bacteria. But getting good sleep was important, getting adequate exercise, and avoiding things that are toxic to the gut anyway, like alcohol or super processed foods or saturated fats. Those people tended to do the best. But they did say still take probiotics like acidophilus if you have irritable bowel syndrome, or sorry, inflammatory bowel disease, not irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease or history of C. diff, because that is a bacteria that's really hard to kill. And so they thought that that would be a good one to take. So I don't know, I just thought it was interesting because we all know, and I've said it for years, oh, you're on an antibiotic, take acidophilus. And maybe that's not good.
What is C. diff?
What?
I'm sorry, Debbie. What is C. diff?
C. diff, it's a bad bug that gets in our gut and causes diarrhea. A lot of times people pick it up in the hospital, and it's a hard one to kill. It's a hard bug to kill. It's almost like a super bug. So what about kombucha, or even like the kefir? I think those would still all be very good, but we maybe don't need to waste our money on buying like acidophilus or something like that. I don't
What about people that think they need to eat those every day?
eat
The
the yogurts.
probiotics.
Oh, well, those are actually good for our gut. The fermentation is good for our gut. So those are okay, but you can do just fine with those high fiber, diverse plant foods. And eating fermented foods is good for the gut too. Fermented foods tend to heal the lining of our gut, which I just have been learning over this course of webinars. So kimchi, yeah, see, kimchi would be great. Yes.
About natto, you eat that? No.
Isn't so talking about natto, isn't that really smelly, slimy stuff?
Fermented. Rich Kubota.
Rich Kubota always had it. Yes. Oh, but no, fermented food is good. Probiotics are good. The point here is just that maybe it's not going to help restore our gut health after antibiotics like we thought it did. That's the point.
What is ultra processed food?
So ultra processed food would be like a white flour. Like you started out with this wheat berry that's high fiber and good for us in the field. And then maybe we even stripped it a little bit, but we still kept it a whole wheat kernel, and we ground it up and made whole wheat bread. So that's processed. And then ultra processed is when we strip off all the stuff and make it nice white soft flour. So there's no fiber left. There's no nutrients left except what they put back in it. That's ultra processed. What's another ultra processed food? What? Hot dogs. Ooh, good one. Okay, good. I don't know why I can't think of any right now.
You don't eat them, that's why.
Yeah. A Twinkie, excellent example. Twinkie of ultra processed food. Think of a food that's packaged up so well it's going to last till the next millennium. That's an ultra processed food. Spam. There you go. Okay, so I forgot to put this in there. What is I wanted to have us look at this, but we're not going to do it now. The internet's been going in and out of my house, and so I tried to preview this from the last time I showed it, And I never got through it because the internet kept conking out. So I'm going to skip it. But here, what is inflammation? So there's kind of two types of inflammation. Inflammation is good. I mean, we need to have some, because especially for these acute things, it's how our body responds. It's an immune response, and it's supposed to help protect our body. So an acute, meaning it just happened right now, is like, oh, I got a splinter. And so now my body's going to try to respond. And you know how it gets all red and angry looking. And so it forms a little defense to protect us and get us healed. That's an acute inflammation. You know, you get a sprained ankle and it puffs up so that now we're going to protect the ankle. That's good. That's what we need. But chronic inflammation is what we're talking about as the source of health problems around the world nowadays. So it means, let's see, what's a chronic? Aggravation must be sustained. So that means we twisted our ankle and it got swollen for a while, but it doesn't last forever. This chronic is like inside, you don't see it, and it lasts for a long time. And things that contribute to our chronic inflammation could be our diet. Our typical SAD American diet, the standard American diet, SAD, lots of ultra processed foods, or also foods that can create inflammation, like high fat foods, fried foods, things like that. So it could be our diet. It could be autoimmune disorders, are usually inflammatory in nature, for people who have lupus or fibromyalgia or type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease, meaning our body turned against some part of our body for some reason. We don't even know why always. And just high stress too can increase our inflammation. That's one thing they're really driving home in these little webinars I've been listening to, is really the effects of stress, how it increases this inflammation in our body, which then in turn increases our risk of all the health problems associated with it: heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity. It relates to all of those. So we want acute inflammation, and our body is designed very well to help take care of instant things. But chronic is what we've developed over years. Okay, now if this were to be our inflammation, that's in the middle, smoldering, think of it, it's on fire. So take a look, extra weight contributes to inflammation, the arrow's going that way. At inflammation. And so our immune cells also, it's an inflammatory response. And so that contributes to inflammation. If our body, one thing is if we have a poor gut lining, because we don't have great bacteria in our gut, they call that dysbiosis. It's an imbalance in our gut bacteria. So now because of that, our gut starts to get a little leaky. And so now things that are supposed to stay inside our intestines might leak through, like big proteins or different things. And so our body sees these, and our immune system mounts up a big response and says, oh, we got to get rid of that. That's inflammation. And so now look at what that smoldering, that fire then can contribute to: cancers, diabetes, autoimmune diseases. Lymphogenesis is lymphangiogenesis, is kind of more problems with our lymph nodes, which is our immune response. Angiogenesis is making more blood vessels. Allergic disorders, like think asthma, heart disease, aging. And in aging, I've just made a little contribution there on the side. To aging would be impairing our memory, contributing to Alzheimer's, increasing our risk of frailty. That's what inflammation does, all those things. So we really want to fight our inflammation. So you're thinking, well, how do I know if I'm inflamed? I can't see it. Well, there are tests. And I don't know, your doctors might have done these on you, but the one that's probably most common is the C-reactive protein, or it's called CRP. And our goal is to be less than 1. When they measure this, it's a blood measurement. Generally, a Western or SAD American diet, they're generally higher. Our C-reactive proteins are generally higher. It's lower, and they've done studies, it's lower when our diet has lots more fruits and vegetables. Why? Because our fruits and vegetables are full of antioxidants, which generally are also anti-inflammatory. So they did do a study here in 2015 that showed on a whole food plant-based diet. So that means not very much of that processed stuff, just whole foods, mostly plants, that the C-reactive response to this vegan lifestyle was that our C-reactive protein went down. And in this group, I mean, this was kind of better than that first study I showed you because there's 600 people. That's still not a ton of people, but that's a decent amount to make you think, well, it wasn't just a fluke. And then another thing they measure is interleukin-6. You'll hear it called IL-6. And what they can do is they can sit you down, feed you a pro-inflammatory meal, which I'll show you what the pro-inflammatory foods are. And that interleukin-6, which is a measure of inflammation, can double within 6 hours. So it can happen right now. And what they found that healthful fats like nuts or avocados also could blunt the effects of that rise. So, you know, my answer on every time I talk with you all, of course, is a whole food plant-based diet is the best thing. Now, I know not everybody's ready for that, but we just move towards a more, and now they're calling it plant forward, more fruits and vegetables, less processed foods, less saturated fat. Those would be the key things to really remember. Now, arthritis too. If you have arthritis, even if you're the healthiest person in the world, but you have arthritis, your C-reactive protein is going to be up a bit because you have this inflammation. So arthritis is the inflammation or, you know, swelling of your joints, and it causes, you know, if as we're getting older, I think the doctors just love to say that, oh, it's probably just arthritis. You know, you're getting older. You must be arthritis. I hate that answer. I hate that answer that, you know, it's just because you're getting older. But sadly, it's true. So it can cause this joint pain and stiffness. Now, rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune disease. So our body actually turned and attacked these membranes that are in our joints. So that is more inflammatory even than just regular arthritis. So, and that's autoimmune. Our body turned against it. So here's our pro-inflammatory foods. Saturated fat, cholesterol, trans fats, so high fat things. So what would be some examples of those? High fat foods. Bacon. And what?
Butter.
Butter, good one.
Burgers and fries.
Burgers and fries. Yes. Anything else? High fat? Pizza, good one. Cheese, whole dairy products. You're right. So we want to limit those or cut them out entirely in a perfect world. Fast foods, because they're not only generally very processed, but they're also generally very high in the bad kind of fats or sugars. Refined carbohydrates are ones that are leaning more towards that ultra processed realm. So they started out okay out in the field, but now we've processed the heck out of them. And now they don't have fiber left. They don't have as many nutrients left. So refined carbohydrates would be like the Twinkies or white bread or what else?
Like glazed donuts.
Chocolate glazed donut. Very good example. Okay. Potato chips as opposed to the potato. You're right. That's such a good example. You start out with this great potato. And potatoes are good for us. And then you move through all these steps to get it to a potato chip, and you've lost it all. You've lost anything of nutritional value. You know, and even those veggie sticks and veggie crisps that people think, oh, I'm eating a vegetable. We lost it all in the processing of that stuff.
Well, if you make your own potato chips, is that all right?
Very good. You can make your own potato chips. That's absolutely excellent idea. Do you use the air fryer?
Well, I don't.
I don't either.
I just put olive oil in the
Okay, good. So you just slice potatoes and stick them in the oven. Excellent idea. Yes. Junk foods. What's a junk food? Ooh, love that. Cheetos. We could just do the whole chip realm there. Cheetos. And what?
Cookies.
Cookies, good. Okay.
Mm.
M&Ms. Let's just say all the things we wish we could eat. Chocolate cake.
Halloween.
Halloween, and yeah, any Halloween, Easter, Christmas, all of them. Sugary foods and drinks, so sodas. There's really just no room for sodas. And, you know, I was with some people the other day, and the gal, I knew she had diabetes, and we ate out, and she ordered a big old lemonade and then got the refill. And so I didn't say anything, but I whispered to my sister, who did say something. And she said, you know, that's funny. I'm surprised you're having lemonade because, you know, you got diabetes. She goes, oh, I thought I didn't know it had sugar. So I'm here to tell you, lemonade is loaded with sugar. It could be equal to soda. It's just without the bubbles.
So I hear a lot that the diet sodas that have no sugar and no calories are just as bad. I don't understand why.
Just as bad, I think, is a big generalization. But the diet sodas, I mean, they generally have found those artificial sweeteners to be safe, but they're always doing different new studies. And I mean, they just found one that sucralose, the yellow stuff, Splenda, might contribute to some health problems. So because we don't really know, that makes them not so great, possibly, but the FDA still says they're safe. But on the other hand, there have been some studies that show when you're drinking those diet sodas, it doesn't make you feel as full. So it might contribute to excess eating. So those would be some reasons. It could dehydrate you a little bit. You're right. You're right. So, I mean, if you go for the bubbles, we could just do like club soda and things like that, and then add some flavorings, like add strawberries to it to give it a little strawberry
'Cause I drink
flavor.
a lot of diet tonic water,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
just plain diet tonic water.
So the tonic water is different from club soda, and that usually has sugar. So they're just using the artificial sugar. So, you know, if it doesn't contribute to making you hungrier, it's probably okay. Although,
Because it's got the quinine that we won't prescribe for you.
yeah, that is true. You protect yourself from COVID with that stuff. And malaria, yeah, and help with cramps and everything. That's right. But, you know, I think diet sodas are probably okay, but we probably don't want to drink them all day. So just because we don't know. And like I would have said 2 months ago, oh yeah, all the artificial sweeteners are probably okay, until they just came out with this new one on sucralose. So I would say they're okay in limited quantities.
It seems they're all okay for a period of years, and then they say, oh, that one's dangerous, now I have to use this one.
So
That
true.
one's dangerous for after a few years. and
You're right.
switch again.
And you know, that is the nature of nutrition studies, because we go based on the studies and then the studies change. And so that was the article I was reading about the sucralose, was maybe it's time to revisit some of these now because we did all the studies.
At all.
What was this? I'm sorry, Debbie, I missed the thing about sucralose.
So there was just a new study out. I just was reading about it yesterday. I haven't read the study, that sucralose might cause some health problems, might be associated with that. That sucralose is Splenda. And so this article suggested we revisit some of those. It's just that studies on like that are very expensive and take a lot of time. And if they don't find good results, they can cost the company a ton of money. So I don't know that they're going to be doing those, but you know,
What about the stevia, the thing?
the stevia would be the most natural because it's a plant, but you know, it's not natural when they put it in that green little packet. I mean, they did stuff to it, but I would say that would be your best bet. That one, that monk fruit seems to be good, but like you said, a year from now, they might do another study and find that it's not okay. So I like your idea. Let's just not do any of it.
Well, isn't there a factor of how much of it you're consuming?
True. And in a lot of the studies, that's what happened with saccharin. Saccharin is a perfect example. I grew up on Tab. I mean, we drank saccharin all the time. And then they did some studies and they pretty much fed the sugar to mice with a garden hose, no amount that we would ever consume ourselves, and found out maybe it caused cancer in these little rats. And then when they realized that it was an unrealistic study and no human would ever have that much, then it came back. So saccharin's the pink stuff, right? Pink stuff. So I would say the stevia is probably the safest that we know, right? That we know today. But unsugary drinks too, I just want to encourage or remind people, you mean lemonade has sugar, soda has sugar. All those Starbucks and Dutch Brothers drinks all have loads of sugar too. So just beware of those. And then refined processed foods. So they have a nice example of the refined processed foods here in our little picture. So there's the Cheetos, there's Doritos, there's our Lay's. I can't read all the rest of them, but they're just the foods that are in a package that they've processed the heck out of. Those are all pro-inflammatory. They are not providing fiber to those bacteria in our gut. If our bacteria in our gut get imbalanced, now our gut's going to get leaky. Our body's going to turn on an immune defense against those big chunks of chemicals that shouldn't have been out there in the first place. And then we've got inflammation. Now, there's also some habits that are related to inflammation that we could work on. So one is the typical American diets. I think I've drilled that into you enough, but not getting enough sleep and not exercising and being exposed to toxins like alcohol and smoking and smog and those kind of things, and unmanaged stress. All of those increase our risk for inflammation. So, and that's one thing that's kind of being driven home to me as I'm listening to these things. Linda, I was talking to her about it and she said, are they trying to sell stuff on this? They kind of are in a little bit, but I can sort through all that and hear the good information. But how important the things that you all are learning here, like getting enough sleep and the exercise and managing stress, are so very important to our health. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so here's some anti-inflammatory foods. These are things that they have studied that they have found are good for inflammation and fighting inflammation in our bodies. It's because one are fruits and vegetables. So I know I'm preaching to the choir, but we want to get lots of fruits and vegetables and as diverse as possible. But whole grains, a lot of people are afraid of whole grains. Now, I'm going to throw in here gluten. And for people who are sensitive to gluten or who have celiac disease, yes, it is inflammatory. For the rest of us, it is not, especially if it's a whole grain that hasn't been processed to death. If we are eating old-fashioned oats or steel-cut oats, if we're eating barley or wheat berries or millet or quinoa, those are good grains and those are not inflammatory. And studies have shown time and time again that those kind of whole intact grains help to fight not just inflammation, but chronic disease. Now, nuts and seeds, anti-inflammatory. Now, they do have loads of calories and they do have some fat. So we've got to watch our portions of them, but they can be very, very helpful as part of a good anti-inflammatory diet. Legumes and beans. So legumes is like the umbrella, and then there's lots of beans under that. So those are very helpful, high in fiber, help feed our gut bacteria. Soy. Now, soy has kind of gotten a bad rap over the years, mostly because of old science. Again, kind of like you said, things are good one day and they're not good the next. So, but soy is one that the new studies do show it's super helpful and can be anti-inflammatory.
It's also fermented.
Fermented.
Fermentation.
That's true. Fermentation always helps that gut bacteria. Now, in the fruits and vegetables, they called out a few particular ones like berries and citrus, like tomatoes on my other side. They kind of call those out separately, and greens. I don't know how greens didn't make my list, but greens should be on here too. Any kind of green are all anti-inflammatory. And spices, I think we forget about the value of our spices. So they can be quite anti-inflammatory. What's the most popular one we hear about all the time? Turmeric. Oh, yes. And I don't think it is overhyped. No. In fact, again, in these little things I've been listening to, and they've been interviewing like gastroenterologists and internal doctors and just all kinds of different people, and turmeric always comes up. Oh, curcumin, of which is in your turmeric.
What
Seems to
about
be good.
cinnamon?
Cinnamon
Debbie?
is excellent. Thank you for asking about that. In fact, that's why I sprinkled that on our little fruit salad today. Yes, cinnamon is excellent. Now, in the teas, black, white, and green tea, all anti-inflammatory. So as a beverage, water's going to be our first choice, but then tea would be kind of our second. And tea would be good. We don't want to put a bunch of sugar or cream and that kind of stuff in them, but they're very good. And you probably heard of matcha, which is green tea that's been dried and ground up. Who here loves matcha? Is that in your mud drink? Matcha? I think it might be. I might be. Anybody here love matcha?
Also,
Turmeric, okay.
besides all the.
Yes. Matcha is one of those, I don't even love green tea. I'm afraid to admit it to you all, but I do not love green tea. But when I mix my green tea with my hibiscus tea, that's a good combo for me. And I've been doing my own self-experiment of having hibiscus tea every day, because I heard a study that for 3 months, people had hibiscus tea every day. It helped lower their blood pressure. So far, it's not been that effective for me, but I'm continuing to try. And there's some more of our spices. There's our turmeric, their garlic, ginger, all good things for anti-inflammatory diet. There's our tomatoes.
What about the difference between like the dried garlic that you get, in the spice aisle versus
Right.
the whole garlic or ginger?
Right. So she's asking, what's the difference if we got the dried or the kind like you get the garlic granules, all still really good. It's all good. Omega-3 fatty acids seem to be anti-inflammatory. And so I know I'm pushing more plant-forward diet, so I'm kind of no on the fish, but can't argue they're in fish. But they're in fish because the fish ate the seaweed that had the omega-3s in it. It's not because the fish are super special. It's because they ate the seaweed. So you could just cut out that middleman, eat your seaweed. But walnuts, flax seeds, chia seeds, I throw in here hemp seeds also, good sources of plant-based omega-3s and anti-inflammatory to boot. And then high fiber. Anything that's got a lot of fiber is going to be good food for our gut bacteria.
Debbie, could you send this slide to Linda to send out?
Absolutely.
I'm doing this on my phone and I have no idea. When I do it on the computer, I can capture the slide, but I have no idea how to do it. And I would really like to stick that up on my refrigerator.
Certainly.
Thank
We
you.
can do that.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Okay. So why does a plant forward, notice I'm not saying like totally plant-based, although I think that's the best, but a plant forward, more plants than anything in your diet help with inflammation and arthritis. Well, they're high in these plant nutrients, phytonutrients that are full of antioxidants, which are usually anti-inflammatory. Usually if we're doing a plant forward diet and we're trying to do a whole food diet, we're going to eat less processed foods because that processed white flour carbs contribute to inflammation. And generally a plant forward diet's lower in fat. And we already know high fat and saturated fat diets increase inflammation. And they're generally high in fiber. So NHANES is a study that they do every number of years where they go around and survey a bunch of people. And in a study that they did, they found that the more fiber people had in their diets, the less inflammatory issues they had. So there are some exceptions to the rule. Not all plant foods are anti-inflammatory. Here I'm telling you, oh, eat plants. But our tropical oils, palm oil, coconut oil, no matter how much marketing they have done to tell us how great coconut oil is for us, it is inflammatory. It's highly saturated, both those kinds. And some people say, oh, I don't even know what palm oil is. It's in your processed and ultra processed foods. And then not all animal foods are pro-inflammatory. I gotta just admit, yeah, here the omega-3s in fatty fish, and it's in fatty fish. It's not all your fish, but it's in the big fish that eat all the little fish in the seaweed. But so it's our bigger fish. They seem to be good. But take a look at this. Fish oils don't lower inflammatory disease mortality. So that means you might take fish oil and maybe that helps with your inflammation, but you still might die. Well, I mean, we're all going to die, but
Fine.
yeah, we might die happy. Well, that is true. I can't argue that point. But they wondered in the study if the reason could be because of the contamination or potential contamination of the fish. Because, you know, the fish get mercury and they eat all the garbage, and now we got plastic in our oceans. And so there's lots of different things that
So,
could contribute.
you know, my doctor encouraged me to take those fish oil
Mhm,
capsules because I dislike fish and don't eat it.
mhm.
It's important.
You know, so the question is, my doctor told me to take fish oil. You know, my husband's doctor told him to take it too, and he takes it because he has high triglycerides. But a lot of the studies now are showing maybe it's not doing us any good, or at the very least, it's not decreasing our risk of mortality. So, you know, it's up to you. I don't generally promote it, but there's still a lot of people out there, especially looking at older research, that's saying to do it. So it might be just fine.
I don't really like it, so I don't.
She doesn't take it anyway.
So I didn't take the advice, but
I'd rather see you eating flaxseed and walnuts and those kind of things. So what does our gut have to do with it? Well, I think I kind of already said this. I forgot I'd add a slide on it, but the gut's our first line of defense to fight against things. And so it protects us from inflammation, especially if we're imbalanced. So notice our next big word, dysbiosis, is when our gut bacteria gets imbalanced. So our gut also can protect us from inflammation, or it can stimulate inflammation, depending on what we're feeding it. So when we eat a good whole food, high fiber diet, what our gut does is it breaks down that, because the bacteria in our gut are all that can digest fiber. We generally can't, but these bacteria love it, and they create these things called short chain fatty acids, which are highly anti-inflammatory. Butyrate is the one that you hear thrown about a lot. Butyrate, short chain fatty acids, super anti-inflammatory. And then some of our other bacteria in our gut, our good bacteria, are anti-inflammatory on their own. And the pro and prebiotics can help lower our inflammation. So our prebiotics are the food, like high fiber, that feed the gut bacteria. Probiotics are actually the bacteria themselves, like in fermented foods and yogurts and that kind of stuff. So they are good. They do help. And fermentation seems to speed up. I think I wrote that wrong. I wrote that totally wrong, but fermentation seems to help heal a damaged gut. That shouldn't say healthy. It should say heal. So fermentation is good. I wish I liked more fermented foods, but I'm just starting to make my own sauerkraut, because I don't like sauerkraut in the jar, but I like that fresh stuff. So I'm going to try to make some of that. But, you know, kombucha, I think that's kind of okay. I love it's expensive. I love tempeh, which is a fermented soybeans and a good kind of meat replacer like a tofu. So I like those. What other fermented things have we talked about? Anything?
Pickles?
Pickles?
I don't know.
Those
That's
are,
the question.
yeah, those are pickled. They're in brine. So they're not fermented, but John just said kimchi. That's a good fermented one.
Using vinegar.
And vinegar can ferment things. Okay. So here's our anti-inflammatory diet. We're eating from the rainbow, which that was our little fruit salad today, was a little rainbow of lots of different colors. So the colors have more phytonutrients. That doesn't mean there's not a place for white stuff in there or brown stuff too. Those can be very good, but low processed. And I don't think I meant to say low nutrient foods. I don't think I meant that at all. I think I meant high nutrient foods, but low in calorie density. So vegetables are low calorie density, meaning there's few calories per bite, but they're loaded with nutrients. So they're high nutrient foods. I see. What?
They have a lot of water.
They do have a lot of water. You're right. So we want to eat lots of fruits and vegetables. We want to eat calories to maintain a healthy weight for us. We want to eat high fiber whole grains, which is the more intact whole grains, the ones that are not processed and ground up as much. We want to go low in animal proteins because a lot of our animal proteins are high in saturated fat, which are going to cause inflammation. We're going to try to choose plant proteins if we're more plant forward, legumes, soy, nuts, seeds. And remember, all our whole grains have protein also. And our vegetables do too. We're going to eat the healthy, unprocessed fats. So you take an olive, it's loaded with fat, but when you squish out all the oil, you've lost a lot of the nutrient composition, and now it's really concentrated in fat. So olives, nuts, seeds, avocado, eat the whole thing, the real thing when you can. Include omega-3s in whatever way you choose to, walnuts, flax, chia, fish. Try a lot of those antioxidant spices and herbs. There's your garlic, your green herbs like oregano, thyme, basil, your ginger, turmeric. Drink tea. Who here likes tea? Anybody? What kind of tea do you like? You like jasmine? Okay.
Drink Earl Grey mixed half and half with mango juice.
Oh, okay. Earl Grey mixed with a little mango. Fun. Okay, what else we got? Other kind of teas.
I drink Trader Joe's chai.
Chai. Ooh, yum.
I think a lot of hibiscus.
Ginger.
I like ginger. Okay, like ginger tea. Okay, here, yeah, okay.
And you can make your own from ginger root. It's far better than the stuff in the package.
Oh, see, that's a good idea. And do you make your own hibiscus or do you buy it?
I don't like hibiscus, so I have ginger.
Okay. Yeah, ginger and hot water. You're right. Yeah. Okay, good. So there's lots of different teas out there. Just a moderate amount of red wine that has polyphenols, which tend to be anti-inflammatory if we're really just having a little bit. But the thing with alcohol is, and I hate to admit it, the recent studies are showing that, especially for brain health, there's no amount of alcohol that's probably good for our brain health, which makes me super sad. But I have cut back a bit. And a little bit of chocolate. I mean, which I know makes everybody happy, especially if it's more 70% cacao.
But they found that darker chocolates tend to have higher concentrations of heavy metals.
That is true. Okay, so he's just putting he's raining on my parade that the darker chocolates might have some heavy metals. You're right. So we do, and the thing is, even though chocolate might have some good anti-inflammatory things, we shouldn't be eating tons and tons of it. So it's something that's a little extra, a little taste. So hopefully it'll be all right.
It's about fermented foods. It's not a food, but wine is a fermented.
Wine. Okay, she's really trying to beat the drum for the wine, which is fermented. That's true. So what about nightshades? I threw this in because a lot of times people hear that these nightshades contribute, they make their arthritis worse. So these are plants that contain this thing called solanine, and it may be a culprit in like arthritis pain. So they could be pro-inflammatory. Eggplant, potatoes, tomatoes, some peppers. And you're thinking, oh, I thought those foods were good for me. But for some people, it might be an issue. So really, not everybody is. So we don't have to just blanket say, I have arthritis, I can't eat any of those. You've got to see for yourself. So eat some of those. And if you find it's a problem, try not to eat them. And if your pain goes away, then you are sensitive to nightshades. So you've got to do a little experiment on yourself. And then even though maybe you stop them and your pain goes away, maybe we don't give it up entirely. Maybe we add it back one at a time, or smaller amounts to see what happens. Because those are generally good, healthy foods. And then there's other ways to fight inflammation. Like I mentioned, these would be those lifestyle habits. So getting a restful sleep. When we're sleeping, especially when we're in that deep REM sleep, that's when our brain cells do a little house cleaning and get everything all straightened up there. So we really need to get some sleep. After I listened to this in these webinars, of course, that was the night I woke up and couldn't sleep for 2 hours. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to wake up with Alzheimer's. I'm sure of it. So then I really couldn't sleep. But exercise, well, if we exercise super, super hard, can be it causes inflammation sometimes. Exercise is highly associated with anti-inflammatory lifestyles. Managing stress. Because when you get stressed, your cortisol goes up, and cortisol is inflammatory. And then there's lots of studies that suggest this time restricted eating. We used to call it intermittent fasting, but it's not really fasting. Now it's time restricted. It's like you should eat in a certain window of time. And this giving no food to your gut for a long period of time gives time for all those cells in the gut to do their house cleaning. Now, one thing I haven't poo-pooed this. Some of the studies have been very good. And especially for weight loss, that, it might help, but maybe not any better than any other kind of way to lose weight. But what they were talking about here is our inflammatory diseases. And so that made me listen a little bit more. Some people suggested 8 hours, like you go between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. and you only eat during that period. So then you've got 14 hours. I don't know if I did my math right. How many hours there? 16 hours. 16 hours of rest for your gut. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Couldn't tell if I did my math right. To me, I can't do that in my life. If you can, more power to you. But I can do 12 hours. I can stop eating by 7 o'clock at night and not start eating until 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. That works for me. That gives my gut a long rest. So it does seem there might be some good things about this as it pertains to our chronic disease and our inflammation.
Well, is it all or nothing with this restrict? I mean, like if you ate one thing after 7 o'clock, would that be better than eating a lot of things, or it doesn't matter?
So the question is, and I'm not sure I even know the answer. It's just saying, well, what if I just had one thing? Well, now your gut's not empty. So I don't know how long that throws off. And now you get to an empty gut. I'm really not sure.
Well, I'm
But-
just wondering if it's volume related.
I'm sure volume would have something to do with it, because if all you ate was one little thing, it's going to disappear sooner than if you ate a big hot fudge sundae after dinner. So I think that might be okay. But also, I think the 12-hour is a doable thing. Do you guys think it is? I mean, isn't that how we used to eat? I was talking to my mom about this. We didn't used to sit around watching TV eating all night. And I think we've kind of gotten into that habit as our world has progressed. So, try whatever you can. And if it's just a little thing, it's better than the big thing, like you said. And then circadian rhythms seem to have a big part of it too, with inflammation. And we're supposed to be going by the sun. And so we should get up when it's light out. And I don't know, I want to go to bed when it gets dark. But really listening to our circadian rhythm, that's another reason why we don't want to eat too late in the evening. And look, there's a lot more to it, but these are just some things I think are manageable for us. And as far as managing stress, what do you do to manage your stress? Deep breathing, yoga, meditation, exercise, listening to music, read a book. Yeah. So we want to kind of work on our stress management techniques.
Talk to your friends.
Talk to your friends, right? And I think Linda Larson does a lot of stuff with you guys on this. And I think that's great. Here's a bunch of our spices that might put out the fire. There's our turmeric, ginger, garlic, peppers, rosemary, cloves. And by the way, when you have your turmeric, you're supposed to have a little black pepper. That's supposed to make it even more powerful. Cloves, there's our cumin, black cumin, which is a whole different thing, cinnamon, all good. They're just dump spices on everything. Yes.
What I wonder is, how much does it take for those things?
So just asking, how much does it take? A lot of the studies might just be a quarter teaspoon of certain things. And that's not much.
So if you ate a quarter teaspoon of one of those things every day.
That would be good. But think, if you sprinkled cinnamon on your oatmeal, cumin on your beans that you had at lunch, black pepper and garlic on turmeric on your vegetables at dinner, I mean, it can all add up, even though it's not, and maybe all of those added up to a quarter teaspoon.
I could eat garlic every day.
I could eat garlic every day too. So here were our dishes today. So we did attempt to make the rainbow, and Anda helped me with the rainbow. Thank you very much for that. You're supposed to have bananas at the end of the pot of gold, but we didn't have room at the end, so we just sprinkled them about. And also the marshmallows. If I could have found some vegan marshmallows, I would have bought those for you, but they kind of defeat the whole purpose of unprocessed foods. So there are just bunches of berries and fruits. The edamame salad, thanks to Angela for making that. So edamame, John thought it'd be better if we just called it bean salad. So edamame are soybeans, but I love edamame. I think they're really good. Or sometimes you'll get them still in the pod and you just squirt them into your mouth. So our inflammation fighters for that, besides our beans, we had high fiber, we had onions, we had cilantro in that, we had citrus. The dressing was just lime and lime zest, tomatoes. Did I leave out anything else in that? I mean, we got lots of different high fiber foods on those. And actually I made that edamame salad for a potluck I went to recently and they ate it up. And then also it's good even heated up late. Oh, it had black beans and corn in it too. Yeah. And avocado. Oh my gosh, it's just a powerhouse. But when I had a little left over, I heated it up and put it on my sweet potato. Like I had a stuffed sweet potato and it worked out really well that way too. So here's our bottom line. I think our bottom line is always the same, but this is for anti-inflammatory, thinking with that in mind. Just eat whole foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds. Limit your animal foods and your animal fats. Try to get rid of processed foods as much as you can. I know there's a place for them, so we need them sometimes. Drink tea, not soda. Keep a healthy weight. Add spices to everything you can. And you're not sure where to start? Well, ask us. This is the perfect place to come and ask your questions. And in 2 weeks, John and I are going to do another little cooking class, and we're going to do it on picnics. Picnic food. We haven't quite decided what we're making yet, but hope to see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank
Is that 2
you.
weeks from, is that 2 weeks from today?
It is 2
Okay.
weeks from today. I think it's the 20th.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's at the longest day of the year, or is it the 21st?
21st.
Longest day of the year. Okay. So thanks everybody. Any more questions? Anything we need to answer? Anybody? How did you like the salad? And the fruit? Well, fruit is fruit. So probably love the fruit. Yes. I went to Winco and got all that before I came here too, by the way. So it was all on sale. Yes.
If you want to eat some, so one that's better than the other, just plain old sugar.
Coconut sugar is the one they promote the most in a plant-based world because it hasn't been refined as much, and but date sugar or date paste are supposed to be good sweeteners too. Honey's good. Or maple syrup. What are you trying to sweeten?
Desserts, like sprinkle them on some fruit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I would say honey would be fine. The date or coconut